welcome back to my channel. If you guys don't know who I am, my name is Divyanka and I am a PharmD. Here on my channel we talk about things revolving pharmacy, your career, professional tips, etc. And my main goal for all my videos is to make sure that I'm providing you with information and helping you in whatever way that I can. I do hope that you learn something from every single one of my videos. Now today I wanted to talk about my pharmacy school journey, how I even chose pharmacy, what happened throughout the years, and where I am now. So I really want to highlight that. I think there's a lot to talk about in between. Like I mentioned, I hope this video is helpful. Now I am just one PharmD graduate and many others exist. There are many other stories. People take very different pathways. So I just want to take this chance to highlight what I did throughout school, what I thought was helpful, what I wish I had more of. And this way, if you're joining pharmacy school or if you're in pharmacy school, hopefully you can take some tips away from this video and apply it to your own journey. Now let's talk about how I picked pharmacy. So when I was in high school, I actually wanted to go into medicine. I thought I wanted to go to med school for a hot second, and in general, I just didn't know what I wanted to do, but I knew I wanted to go into medicine. My senior year of high school, I actually had an internship at a hospital in town, and it was a semester-long internship. Within that internship, what I was able to do was I was able to shadow within the ICU, the emergency room, the birth center, and some other little areas, and just see what happens in a hospital, how doctors operate, how the whole medical team works together on patients to make sure that they get better and leave the hospital. This was definitely a great experience. If you have the chance to do something like this, even if you are not sure what you want to do with your career, I definitely think it was eye-opening. I was able to see how the whole medical team works together, what happens in the ICU versus the emergency room versus the birth center, and how each of those departments are really different. That exposure as a high schooler was definitely a very high value experience. Now one day when I was shadowing in the ICU, I had some downtime and I was actually made to sit in the pharmacist's room. At that time, I honestly didn't even realize that a pharmacist was really a career choice, and I just didn't really realize their role within the hospital system. Of course, it seems obvious, they provide the medications, but there's so much more that goes into that. And again, as a child, I never thought of pharmacy as a career option. So that day I was sitting in the ICU and I was talking to the pharmacist who was sitting there, and she was just like, you know, I love what I do. I love my job. I love what I do every day. I wouldn't want to do anything else. And that got me thinking, and it made me research more into what a pharmacist does and who a pharmacist is and what their role is within the hospital, the community, everything. At the time, I had not yet applied to colleges, and I was still deciding what I wanted to do and where I wanted to go. And I was toying between a few different medical options, such as biomedical engineering, radiology, med school, etc. So now I had researched about pharmacy and threw that into the pool too of options of what I could pursue. When I looked deeper into it and talked to more people, I realized that there was a 6-year PharmD program in which you could get your doctorate of pharmacy and you could just consecutively go to school for 6 years and be done with it. That program really caught my eye, and so when I did more research into it, I decided that this is exactly what I wanted to do. I would fulfill my want of doing something in the medical field, and it just seemed perfect at the time. So then I applied to a million different schools. Okay, not a million, but I did apply to a very high amount of schools, some for pharmacy and some not for pharmacy. And within pharmacy, I applied to different types of pharmacy schools, which I'll explain in a little bit. And then when I got admission, I decided to go into the direct 6-year PharmD program at MCPHS University. Now, when I talk about pharmacy school options, there's a multitude of ways you can become a pharmacist. You can either do your 4 years of bachelor's and then do a 4-year graduate pharmacy degree and become a pharmacist. Or again, like I've mentioned, you can do the 6-year PharmD program. Now, even within the 6-year PharmD program, depending on what school you go to, the programs can be different. So where I went to school, MCPHS University, they had the option of going directly into the 6 years and not having to take the PCAT, which is the pharmacy school entrance exam. So that sounded pretty great. I got into school, it was a direct 6 years, I did not have to take the PCAT, and the caveat there was as long as your GPA was high enough, which I had no intention of letting my GPA drop, so that sounded great. But some other schools actually do have the 6-year program, after which the first 2 years you do have to take the PCAT, you have to score well, and you have to acquire admission into the pharmacy school. The pharmacy school is generally at the same school you did the first 2 years at, but again, you need that standardized PCAT score and you need admission into the school itself. I just didn't want to spend the time taking the PCAT and applying to school again, so I went with the direct 6-year option. There's a bunch of pros and cons, but I can just make another video on that. It's way too much to talk about. So now that I had picked my 6 years, I was off to Boston for school. Now I'm just going to go over some terminology. I'm going to kind of explain what happens every year of pharmacy school out of the whole 6 years and kind of give you an overview of what that looks like. So like I mentioned, the breakdown is generally the 2 years at the beginning versus the 4 years at the end. It is seen as though you're doing your 2 years and that's equivalent to your undergrad degree, and then the next 4 years are your graduate degree years. So the first 2 years, the classes you're taking are very basic, your basic chemistry, microbiology, your labs, your math classes, again, all the prereqs that you would generally need to get into graduate school. Instead of doing it in 4 years, you get to do it in 2 years, and that's definitely the pro in the 6-year program. Now, the 3rd year, you generally start getting into very pharmaceutical-based classes, and I'll do a separate video on the curriculum that I had, but this is the year you really start diving deep into the pharmacology of all the medicines, your pathophysiology, and everything else you need to know and learn in school. 4th year is, again, you're diving deeper into the pharmacology and all of the information that you really need to know and understand to be a good pharmacist. At my school, this is actually our hardest year, and generally nationwide, 4th year is the hardest year for all pharmacy students. It can vary, but generally it's kind of the year that once you make it through, you're smooth sailing, but that year is definitely rough. I'll make another video on my experience of my 4th year, but I dropped everything. I did not focus on anything else other than school. And of course it did pay off, but like I mentioned, you really have to focus. It takes a lot of your energy, your brain. All you're doing is school all the time. From the moment you wake up to the moment you sleep, you're only studying, you're only going to classes. And it's definitely a lot and it's challenging. Now, 5th year is again kind of the culmination of your pharmacy school experience. It's the last year of lectures and that true in-class experience. You're again learning even deeper in terms of all the theories and all the information you've already learned the past few years, and you're getting ready to implement that information in the real world. Now, the 6th year of pharmacy school is usually all rotations. It is an experiential year, and it is the year to get you ready to go into the real world to work as a pharmacist. Now, really what 6th year is about is, again, gaining that experience. So depends on the school, but for our school, we had 8 rotation blocks that were 6 weeks long. We got 2 rotation blocks off, which means we had 6 rotation blocks to complete in various different working environments. And this was just as an intern to gain experience, and it is part of the curriculum, and those hours that you put in are required by the Board of Pharmacy to graduate and become a registered pharmacist. Now, in terms of experience, like I already mentioned, the 6th year you have those rotations, and they are called APPEs, APPEs, but that is not the only experience you get in pharmacy school. Now, again, the schedule can vary from school to school, but for us, what that schedule looked like was after our 3rd year, we had a 1-month IPPE, IPPE rotation, and then after our 4th year, we also had another 1-month IPPE rotation. So overall, after your 3rd year, you're getting 1 month of experience. After the 4th year, you're getting 1 month of experience. And then in your 6th year, you're getting 6 blocks of 6 weeks each of rotation experience. Now again, even the IPPE hours, they are accounted for. They count as a grade in your curriculum, and those hours are required nationally by the Board of Pharmacy to graduate and be a registered pharmacist. So it's all part of the curriculum. However other schools break it up, all pharmacy students nationwide will get the same amount of experience in terms of hours. Now, rotations happen in various different environments, and there are various different requirements to those, and I won't get into them. I've mentioned them before, and I'll make more videos on them. But again, it is written in the curriculum for students to gain different types of experiences to honestly know what you want to do after you graduate. Now, in terms of my personal experience, I also held other jobs and internships throughout my pharmacy school experience. So I'm just going to go through those and kind of highlight what I did and when I did it to give you a brief overview of what my schooling and work schedule looked like. So before I even started pharmacy school, the summer before, I actually worked as a pharmacy technician at an independent pharmacy in my hometown. This definitely gave me a good overview of what happens in a pharmacy as a pharmacy technician. I was able to look at what the pharmacist does, and it gave me a good basis to go into pharmacy school. Now, during my first year of pharmacy school, within the first few months, I actually received an offer from CVS to be a pharmacy technician, and that was my first experience in college. This isn't too exciting of an experience. Most pharmacy students do work as a pharmacy technician at some point in their career, and usually that is at one of the big chains like CVS or Walgreens, but like I mentioned, it could be at an independent pharmacy and a multitude of other places. I honestly wanted to find something more challenging. I just wasn't being challenged in the way that I wanted to be at CVS, and I couldn't really see myself being a pharmacist at a retail store in the future. So I just wanted to widen my types of experiences that I got in college. So what that led me to was actually working at Dana-Farber Cancer Institute, which is a cancer hospital in Boston. And of course, they do a bunch of research. So I actually got a job as a research assistant in a research lab at Dana-Farber. Now, most pharmacy students do not do this at all. The research track is very MD, PhD heavy. It's written in the curriculum for someone who is doing their PhD, and a lot of MDs do research. So again, this isn't something that a pharmacist generally does, but I was very young. I had multiple years ahead of me in pharmacy school, and I was just looking for new experiences that were challenging and new. So I started at Dana-Farber around my second year of pharmacy school. And while I was doing that, I was also actually a note taker on campus for our disability center. So that was a job, and basically my role was to take notes for classes that I was already enrolled in and give them in a legible manner to the disability center. So my second year, I had Dana-Farber part-time and also this note-taker job. Now, both my third and fourth years, I continued at Dana-Farber. I actually switched between a few different labs, and if you guys are interested in my experience at Dana-Farber, at how I even landed that, at what my experience was at a research lab, all of that, I can talk about that in another video. But I did end up being at Dana-Farber for 3 to 4 years at various different research labs with different projects. Then after my fourth year, during that summer, I actually got an internship at Celgene, which is a pharmaceutical company in New Jersey. They are now bought by BMS, so they are not Celgene anymore, but at the time, they were about 8,000 people, and I got a summer internship in their medical affairs group. That was right after I had discovered the pharmaceutical industry. I had done my research. I knew that that's something that I wanted to explore and could possibly see myself working in the future. So I wanted to get an internship under my belt to gain some experience, really understand what it's all about, and then go from there. So I absolutely loved that internship. Again, I can talk about that in detail in another video, but that's what I did in my summer after my fourth year. And then after my fifth year, that summer, rotations actually started right after. So I had my 2 blocks off, and then I started my rotations, which were my 6th year. And then I graduated, which was actually about a month ago now. So very, very exciting. But that's kind of my job journey in terms of all the roles I held during school. Now, there's no right or wrong amount of job experiences that you should or should not hold while in pharmacy school. That is just what I did. I really wanted to test the waters. I wanted to see what I could do, where I could do it, and I just wanted to experiment. So I used those years to do that, and I think it definitely served me well because I got good experience. I was able to see what I actually want to do in the future, and it definitely did help me shape my postgraduate plans. Now, in terms of the timeline itself, of course, we're sitting in the year where COVID-19 has taken over. So my last 1.5 rotations was actually done remotely, which I kind of did an update video about. Everyone went remote for their last few rotations. All clinical rotations were canceled. So thankfully, my last rotation was not a clinical rotation, and I was able to get all the hours that I needed under my belt. So COVID did affect that, and COVID, of course, affected our graduation as well. So we had a virtual graduation, no real ceremony up until now. They're thinking about maybe having one in the future, but again, it's kind of very undecided. No one really knows what's going on. So that's to be determined, but as of now, that's kind of been the course of action. Now, that was generally my journey throughout pharmacy school. I hope that gave you some kind of insight into how my process was, into how I put my time during these years. And if you guys have any follow-up questions, please comment them below. I'd be happy to answer them. There's a lot of things, like I mentioned, I just did not go into detail about, and there's a lot I could talk about. So we can definitely dive into deeper topics, but I just wanted to give you a general overview of what my pharmacy school life looked like, what I did during those years, both professionally and academically, how the general curriculum went for my school, and what my thoughts were on all of that. I had a pretty great pharmacy school experience. I've definitely learned a lot. I'm definitely thankful for my experience, and I'm happy to have graduated with my PharmD. Absolutely no regrets, and I'm so glad I spent the last 6 years doing this So I'm definitely happy with the decision I took as a senior in high school. Now, in terms of next steps, I actually do have to take my NAPLEX exam, which is the National Board of Pharmacy exam, to be a registered pharmacist. So I will start studying for that, and I will take that once testing centers start opening up. Again, we don't really know when that is just due to COVID. They are open in some states and they're not in some states. So there's a whole bunch of restrictions about that, but that's kind of what I'll be doing next steps wise in terms of my pharmacy journey to, again, become a registered pharmacist. I hope this video was helpful as always. I really do want you guys to take away something from every video that I have on this channel. I hope it gave you insight into my process, my journey, and my life as a pharmacy student. Please go ahead, feel free to email me, comment below with any questions you have. That's it for this video, and you guys will see me in my next one.